What's going on, Gacha gang? Kawaii50 here with another Genshin Impact video. Of course, raring to talk about the brand new Pyro character that I'm sure a ton of you are going to roll for. It is Klee, the Spark Knight. We're going to go ahead and go over all of Klee's abilities. We're going to talk about some of the best weapons as well as artifacts to equip on Klee. And we're going to talk about whether she's worth summoning at this point. I know there's a lot of characters a lot of people are looking forward to down the line, Zhongli being one of them. But is Klee worth the summon? Let's find out. So let's kick this video off by looking at Klee's 3 attack-based talents. Her normal attack is called Kaboom. Normally, this just throws bomb, performs up to 3 explosive attacks, AoE pyro damage. If you end up charging this up, it consumes some stamina and then deals AoE pyro damage. If you do a plunging attack, Klee plunges towards the ground, dealing, you guessed it, AoE pyro damage. This little girl is all about bombs. Klee's elemental skill is Jumpty Dumpty. This bounces 3 times, dealing AoE pyro damage with every bounce, as well as igniting the area around it. So if you hit some shield guys, well, that's going to be real nice. On the 3rd bounce, the bomb's going to split into a bunch of mines. The mines are then going to explode, dealing more of that AoE pyro damage, and this has 2 charges on it. Klee's elemental burst is Sparks and Splash. For the duration of this ability, she continually summons Sparks and Splash to attack nearby enemies, dealing AoE pyro damage. So it's basically just her bomb on steroids. This is absolutely nuts. You can see with Klee's 3 basic attacks, very simple kit, just designed to deal all the AoE pyro in the world. Now, Klee, of course, has 3 passives, and these passives are very focused on damage as well. Her first passive, Pounding Surprise, when her attacks deal damage, she's got a 50% chance to obtain an explosive spark. That spark gets consumed by the next charge attack she makes, it costs no stamina, and it deals 50% increased damage. So, a charge attack on steroids, kinda getting some feelings like Ningguang a little bit. When it comes to her second passive, whenever her charged attack results in a crit, all of her party members gain 2 elemental energy. So that's going to help your overall energy regen. We know energy regen is very important in this game, and it means you're going to be using charged attacks quite frequently with Klee, especially during boss encounters and in raids with your friends. When it comes to her third passive, All of My Treasures simply displays resources unique to Mondstadt on the minimap. I really like these kinds of abilities that are focused on a specific region, because we all know a lot of those regional ascension materials are very difficult to find. So if you're adventuring in Mondstadt, there is almost no reason you shouldn't have Klee in your party. She's just going to help you out immensely. Of course, for all the whales out there, we've definitely got to talk about Constellations. Let's look at Klee's first 3 levels of Constellation first. Chain Reactions has her attack and skills have a chance to summon some sparks that bombard enemies. This deals damage equal to 120% of Sparks and Splashes damage. So gang, already with a Constellation 1, much like Venti's, this just overall increases her damage by an insane amount. Pulling 2 copies is going to make her even more of a staple on your team. Her second constellation, Explosive Frags, being hit by Jumpty Dumpty's mines, decreases enemy defense by 23% for 10 seconds. That 23% defense, of course, is going to be very helpful for all of your party members, not just Klee. Her third constellation, of course, increases the level of Jumpty Dumpty by 3 and boosts the maximum level to 15. This isn't really a super huge deal right now for a lot of people, but when you end up getting closer into the end game, getting those level 90s there, getting your talents close to that level 15, it's really going to matter when it comes to ramping up the damage. And now let's move on to the latter 3. Klee's 4th constellation is Sparkly Explosion. If she leaves the field during Sparks and Splash, her departure triggers an explosion that deals a crazy 555% of her attack as that AoE pyro damage. So this incentivizes you to just immediately use Sparks and Splash and switch Klee out right then and there. Maybe jump into the middle of a gigantic horde of enemies and just let them all have it. And it's going to be super helpful. Her Constellation 5 is, of course, increased level of Sparks and Splash by 3, maximum level is 15. This one is a little less boring, mainly because it helps that sparkly explosion. So if you have that 4th copy and you get this 5th, well, your overall damage output is just straight up going up. And as always, the Constellation 6 has to be absurd, and with Klee, that trend continues. Blazing Delight, whenever she is under effect of Sparks and Splash, her other party members will continuously regenerate their energy. But there's more. When she uses Sparks and Splash, all party members get a 10% Pyro damage bonus for 25 seconds. So this ends up making Klee very, very viable in missions and dungeons where you want to focus on using maybe multiples of the same element, or even, I hear some tell people are thinking about full single elemental teams. So this will play very, very well into that if that ever does come to pass. When it comes to artifacts with Klee, I wanted to provide everybody with 2 options for the character. The first option I'm going to mention is Martial Artist, and I'm mainly picking these for the set bonuses. I like Martial Artist on her because at that 2-piece bonus, you get normal and charge attack damage increased by 15%. We know a lot of Klee's damage does come from her charge attack, so increasing that damage is going to help her out. And of course, her 4-piece bonus, after using an elemental skill, you get that boost to normal attack and charge attack damage, but that is a 25% bonus for 8 seconds. And that, of course, does stack with the previous 15% bonus. So you're going to be getting a lot more mileage out of Klee's charge attacks. And for the other option, of course, Klee is completely focused around Pyro damage, so why would I not mention Crimson Witch of Flames? The 2-piece bonus just increases your Pyro damage by 15%, and that 4-piece bonus increases Overloaded and Burning damage by 40%, and increases Vaporize and Melt damage by 15%. But using an elemental skill also increases the 2-piece set effect by 50% for 10 seconds, and that has a max of 3 stacks. So this ends up stacking a lot of AoE Pyro damage bonuses on top of Klee. So if you have one of these sets and you're using it to max completion, gang, Klee is just going to be melting through your enemies. Of course, we also want the same recommendation to apply to weapons, so I've got a 4-star as well as a 5-star weapon recommendation for Klee. She uses catalysts. Let's of course kick off with our 4-star recommendation with the Eye of Perception. The effect the Eye of Perception has, normal and charged attacks, again normal and charged attacks, focusing on those, have a 50% chance to fire a Bolt of Perception, dealing 240% of Klee's attack as damage. This bolt can bounce between enemies a maximum of 4 times, and this effect can only occur once every 12 seconds. With Klee being an AoE damage-focused character designed to take out large groups of weaker enemies, I figured giving her a weapon that would be focused on increasing that overall AoE damage, like Eye of Perception does with the Bouncing Bolt, was the right call to make. And for the 5-star, now this one does not have a focus on charge attack damage, but the other bonuses it has are good enough that I really felt like it was worth mentioning. That is Skyward Atlas. Skyward Atlas increases elemental damage bonuses by 12%. It also gives your normal attack a 50% chance to grant Favor of the Clouds, which actively seeks out nearby enemies to attack for 15 seconds. And that deals 160% attack damage. This can only occur once every 30 seconds, but with how frequently you switch out your characters in Genshin Impact, I'm sure you can end up burning another 30 seconds to give Klee a chance to use this again. Overall, gang, I would say as of this video's publishing date, Klee is probably the second best Pyro character in the entire game. It is very, very difficult to dethrone Diluc. Diluc's just an absolutely absurd character. I don't really see how he even made it past playtesting, but I guess when you're a 5-star, you need to do some absurd damage. But if you don't have Diluc, if you end up pulling Klee instead and you're using her, she is going to get the job done. Her AoE damage is fantastic. It should really help you when you're clearing domains. When it comes to fighting world bosses, any bosses you end up fighting that end up summoning additional enemies, Klee is going to absolutely excel in that as well. And when you're able to just sink everything into Pyro damage, you know this character is going to be burning down all of those shields. And let's be real, burning down shields is all we want to do in Genshin Impact, because they're super, super annoying. And that wraps up my overall thoughts on Klee. Gang, I kind of want to know what you all think about Klee, so why don't you go ahead and let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know if you pulled her, if you were going for multiple constellations, what constellation level were you going for, and why don't you tell me some of your recommended allies you're recommending for Klee. I don't have a huge grasp on how the whole cast works with each other yet, so I didn't feel comfortable recommending allies to you guys just yet, but that might be an inclusion in future videos down the line. This is Kawaii50, hoping you all have a phenomenal day, and I'll see y'all in the next video.